Chapter 478. Obviously we're going on a date. At this moment, out of the corner of her eyes, she saw a velvety white cloud laying next to Si Yihan's feet. Great white! Yi Wanwan exclaimed, then got off Si Yihan's lap. She turned towards the white tiger and pounced on it instantly. Through all her perseverance pestering, she was now able to get within a one-step radius to Great White, and even run her hand along the hairs at the edge of the tiger's body. Xia witnessed how Yi Wanwan pacified that great devil and in the next second, extended her evil hand towards slaughter without getting bitten. For a moment, it felt like he was in a dream. Is this person still the ruthless and reckless Si Yihan who doesn't tolerate the least bit of sand in his eyes? And is this still the slaughter who hates strangers and would tear a person to shreds whenever it wants? Fuck! Xia couldn't help but let out a curse softly. Only then did Yi Wanwan lift her head and look over at the person by the side. She said surprised, Xia? Why were you here too? Xia's stunning face immediately broke into pieces when he heard that. I was here all along, alright? Are you here to visit your ninth uncle? Yi Wanwan blinked as she asked. Is there a problem? Xia replied grumpily. Yi Wanwan immediately asked again. Oh, are you done visiting then? Understanding the meaning behind Yi Wanwan's words that she wanted him to leave, Xia's face darkened. Yi Wanwan, what do you mean? Yi Wanwan smiled. I mean, if you're done, why don't you hurry back home because I'm going out with your ninth uncle? Xia furrowed his brows. Going out? It's so late. Why are you guys going out? Yi Wanwan. Obviously we're going on a date. Xia was so mad that his heart hurt. I rushed here right after I returned from Shin City. I haven't even had a proper meal, and now you're chasing me away. Is this how elders should act? Yi Wanwan felt a little guilty and she muttered. I didn't say we weren't letting you eat. I'm going on a date with your ninth uncle, so you can stay and have your meal here. I'll get the kitchen to prepare one for you. They'll prepare whatever you want to eat. Xia. Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan was roared at by the little devil till her eardrums were sore. Then what do you want, huh? Xia took a deep breath then said. I want you guys to either stay put or take me with you. Yi Wanwan turned her head to look at Si Yihan. A baby, do you mind having a light bulb? The kind that's around 500 watts, Si Yihan. Anything goes. Xia. Thus, a date between two people became a date with three people just like that. Half an hour later, the car stopped at a mall. Yi Wanwan had planned to bring Si Yihan to a very popular restaurant. Before Xia left the house, he insisted on getting someone to prepare a casual outfit for him to change into. So now he was wearing a pair of jeans, sneakers and a pink t-shirt, looking very youthful and vibrant. The three of them together was simply too eye-catching, and attracted a lot of stares the moment they stepped out of the car. When they reached the entrance, the restaurant was extremely packed as usual. There were many tables outside and there were many customers waiting in line. A young salesgirl was holding a poster and telling customers that there was a couple promotion at the restaurant. Xia glanced at Yi Wanwan's pink dress, and the corners of his lips curved upwards. Then he stood next to Yi Wanwan and asked with intention. Ninth aunt, look, do we look like a couple? Xia and Yi Wanwan were around the same age, and now they were dressed in the same color. They could indeed be easily mistaken for a couple. This troublemaker. Yi Wanwan panicked and looked at Si Yihan, then she clenched her teeth and hugged Si Yihan's arm, beaming. Hee, don't we look like daddy and mommy bringing our son out? Xia's cheeky grin cracked in a split second. Yi Wanwan. Go to hell. Chapter 479. Ninth uncle in love. Seeing Xia so agitated, Yi Wanwan very kindly placated him. Alright, it's daddy and mommy bringing a very handsome son out. Is that okay? Are you happier now? Not a single bit. Okay. Xia buried his head on the little table, and didn't want to speak anymore. Beside him, Si Yihan sat there in silence, looking at the girl with a crafty fox grin on her face. The iciness in his cold eyes melted away, and a faint smile appeared like a light wind blowing across a lake's surface, causing layer upon layer of ripples. Ever since he was severely injured, his temper became more violent and unpredictable. It was as if a roaring, havoc-wrecking wild beast was living inside his body that even he was unable to control, and he could only watch as his own thoughts and consciousness became dominated and corroded, bit by bit. However, those irritable moods became increasingly calmer, and he almost couldn't recall when he last raged and lost control. Yi Wanwan looked at the waitress by the side and inquired, "Hello, may I know roughly how much longer we have to wait?" The waitress looked at their number and replied, "At this time, it's the peak hour, so it will take longer to get a table. You will probably have to wait another hour and a half." "What? That's long." Xixia immediately stood up. Yi Wanwan gave him side-eye. "My great young master, all the restaurants with slightly better business would require us to wait. Can you stop making a fuss? When do I ever go out without having servants all around me, or VIP seating? Now I actually have to squeeze in with so many people and wait in line for so long." Xixia frowned. "Why should we waste our time in line? We should have just gotten Sui to arrange things." Yi Wanwan rolled her eyes at him. "Little child who doesn't know what fun is, keep your mouth shut." If she merely wanted to have a meal with Si Han, she could have made reservations at a high-class restaurant, finished eating and left right away. Why would she go through this hassle? But what's the point of going on those kinds of dates? This guy, Si Han, was too otherworldly. This would be the perfect opportunity for him to experience the life of an ordinary human. At this moment, from the corners of her eyes, Yi Wanwan saw the waitress holding something in her hand and she asked excitedly, Is that paper for folding lucky stars?" The waitress quickly brought out a few stacks of shiny long strips of paper and said, "Yep, these are meant for folding lucky stars. Our restaurant is having a promotion. Customers that fold 150 little stars will be entitled to a $30 dining voucher. Do the three of you want to give it a try since there's still quite a long wait? What a great deal. We can even get a discount." This was probably a little idea the restaurant came up with in order to retain customers and keep them occupied while waiting. Sure. Give them to me." Yi Wanwan immediately took them. After speaking, she turned to Xixia. "What are you sitting there for? Quickly help fold some stars. We'll be able to get a discount of $30. Xixia stared at her in disbelief. "Are you kidding me? For $30, she wants me to waste my time folding these?" Then, a low voice came from beside Yi Wanwan. Si Han's long and slender fingers took a pink strip as he said, "How do I fold it?" "I'll teach you, it's very easy. Just watch how I do it, you'll definitely pick it up." Yi Wanwan moved closer to Si Han and guided him step by step. "Got it?" Yi Wanwan asked after she folded a star. Si Han's fingers moved swiftly and very soon, a little star even more perfect than the one Yi Wanwan folded appeared in his palm. "Like this." Yes. Baby, you're amazing." Yi Wanwan gave Si Han a kiss on the cheek. Xixia looked at his cold and revered ninth uncle dressed in an expensive custom-made suit folding little stars at the moment. Do people in love have mental problems? Chapter 480. Can't bear it. She passed a stack of blue strips of paper over. Xixia looked at the bright strips of paper in Yi Wanwan's hands, took a deep breath and accepted them reluctantly. What exactly am I here for? The one who folded stars the nicest was Si Han. Each star had a perfect point like it was an art piece. His stars were followed by Yi Wanwan's, which were average, and the worst were Xixia's loose and flimsy, ugly and out-of-shape stars. Si Han used pink strips, Xixia used blue, and Yi Wanwan used yellow. The three of them split up the work, and after they were done folding 150 stars, Yi Wanwan immediately called the waitress over happily. "We're done. Miss, you guys folded them really nicely." The waitress looked at the pink and yellow bags of stars and couldn't help but compliment them. However, when she saw Xixia's bag, her face twitched a little. Yi Wanwan couldn't stand it as well. The stars in the blue bag were folded quite badly. Can they even be used? Xixia was massaging his aching fingers, but when he heard Yi Wanwan's comment, his face darkened. "She actually insulted the stars I folded." The waitress coughed lightly and said, "No problem, they can all be used as long as the quantity is enough." Hearing the waitress say that, Xixia didn't look so glum anymore. He painstakingly folded so many stars, and if they couldn't even be used, he might really tear down this restaurant. The waitress then took away the 3 bags of little stars, but Yuanwan hesitated and stopped her. Wait. Miss, is there anything else? The waitress asked. Yuanwan thought for a while then said, 150 stars for $30. So it means 50 stars can be exchanged for $10? That's right. Oh then. Yuanwan kept Si Han's bag of pink little stars, looked at the waitress and said, we won't exchange this bag then. We'll use just those 2 bags in exchange for $20. Sure. The waitress kept the other 2 bags of little stars. After the waitress left, Si Han turned to Yuanwan. Why aren't you exchanging this bag? Yuanwan held up the bag of little pink stars, and her smile blossomed like a flower. This bag of little stars was personally folded by the CEO of C Corporation, master of the C family, right? Of course I can't bear to sell them. I want to keep them as a souvenir. Little stars folded by the great devil are simply too rare. Huh? Wuxia. How could you exchange mine just like that? When it was finally their turn to sit, Wuxia was almost dying from the abuse. The restaurant was packed. There was a deliciously fragrant scent of food in the air, fresh flowers on the table, and someone playing the violin in the middle of the restaurant. The atmosphere was lovely. Currently, there were also a female host and a pair of lovers on stage who appeared like they were playing a game. Yuanwan finished ordering the dishes very quickly, and while they were waiting for the food, she rubbed her chin and looked at the stage. What game is this? The waitress who was filling their cups explained. This game is called telepathy. It goes like this. The host will use a computer to randomly select 10 groups of objects. Each group will contain 2 objects and will be shown on the big screen. The girl will choose one of the 2 objects, then the guy will have to guess which object the girl chose. There will be a total of 10 chances and a total score of 10 points. The couple with the highest score tonight will receive a prize. Chapter 481. I want to play and you have to go with me. Wuxia glanced at the stage unenthusiastically. Boring. Yuanwan didn't bother with Wuxia. She turned to the waitress and asked, what's the prize? The waitress responded, the customers with the highest score will receive a laptop, and if there's a tie, we'll have a face-off. Couples don't usually get a perfect score for a game like this even if they know each other very well. The highest score on record in our restaurant is 8 points, so we have a rule. If a couple can get a perfect score, they'll receive a grand prize. What's the grand prize? Yuanwan asked instantly. Waitress. $30,000 in cash. They're actually giving out straight cash. This is right up my alley. Yuanwan was excited the moment she heard that, and really wanted to give it a go. However, this thought went by in a flash. Si Han didn't like showing his face in public. Making him fold those little stars could be considered acceptable, fun even, but pulling him up on stage to play this childish game would be stepping over the boundaries. Miss, you guys can go up there and try your luck, the waitress prompted. Thanks, but it's fine. I'm not that lucky. Yuanwan smiled. Then Wuxia, who was bored to death, suddenly asked, hey, do we have to be lovers to play? The waitress said, our restaurant plans some special activities for lovers today, but since you guys came too late, those exclusive games for lovers already ended. This program now is catered for all customers in the restaurant, so you can join as long as there are 2 people in a team. No matter if you're lovers, friends, or relatives, this is open to everyone. Wuxia tilted his head and looked at Yuanwan. Ninth aunt, what? Yuanwan suddenly had a bad feeling about this. I want to play and you have to go with me, Wuxia said firmly. Yuanwan was speechless. Didn't you just say it's boring? Wuxia raised his brows. Now it's not boring. I want to get the $30,000. I haven't had enough money to spend lately. Who would believe that bullshit? Wuxia narrowed his eyes. You're the one who brought me out. Are you just going to abandon me like that? As an elder, can't you satisfy this little request of mine? Yuanwan was speechless. He made it sound as if she actually wanted to bring him along. Anyway, you really want to play too? Wuxia muttered. Yuanwan denied it instantly. Says who? I don't want to play at all. Are you sure? It's $30,000. She didn't even let go of $30 just now. How could she not be moved by $30,000? Xia knew very well that Si Yihan wouldn't play this game with her, so he egged her on intentionally. Yi Wanwan obviously knew this little devil's intentions, so she glared at him fiercely. I said I'm not playing. Si Yihan sipped his tea and didn't look too unhappy. He placed his teacup down and said to Yi Wanwan, go play. When Yi Wanwan heard that, she was somewhat surprised as she blinked and looked at Si Yihan. Looks like Si Yihan's in a pretty good mood today, huh? He's actually allowing me to play this game with Xia? Xia immediately said. We can go now, right? Ninth uncle already agreed. Before Yi Wanwan could respond, Xia turned to the waitress and said eagerly, please sign us up. When Yi Wanwan returned to her senses, the waitress had already signed them up, and at the same time, the previous couple had just ended their game, so they were the next to go up on stage. Chapter 482. How did you even guess? The host's eyes lit up when she saw the three of them. She walked forward and asked, may I know who's participating in this game? Yi Wanwan pointed at herself and Xia. Both of us. May I know how the two of you are related to each other? Friends. The host initially wanted to ask if they were lovers, but although this girl looked like she could be in a relationship with this boy, she was definitely more intimate with the guy next to her. To prevent Xia from speaking nonsense, Yi Wanwan swiftly replied first, relatives. I see, great. Then before we start, I need to tell you that the highest score right now is 8 points. The two of you need to surpass this score in order to win a prize. If there's a tie, we'll arrange for a playoff. We'll start right away if there are no other questions. No problem, let's start. Xia prompted. Yi Wanwan didn't have a choice and could only go along with him. No problem. Miss, please hold the remote control in your hands. 2 images will appear on the big screen once the game starts. Please choose one of the images within 3 seconds. Your choice will be revealed after this handsome lad here makes a guess. The host explained the game, then announced the official start of the game. Shortly after, the images on the big screen rotated at lightning speed and slowly came to a stop. There was an image of a black rose on the right and a golden, bright sunflower on the left. With trigger-happy reflexes, Yi Wanwan chose the sunflower without a second thought. This handsome lad here, please make a guess now. Which image did she choose? Yi Wanwan stared at Xia nervously, awaiting his response. Xia glanced at the 2 images, then replied firmly, black rose. When the host heard that, she had a sorrowful expression. Sorry, you got it wrong. This beautiful lady chose the sunflower. The big screen revealed Yi Wanwan's choice, and there was a big check mark next to the image of the sunflower. This is just the first stage. There are still plenty of chances, so please work harder for the next round. The host cheered them on. Shortly after that, the second group of images appeared. A little yellow chick on the left and a big white tiger on the right. This is too easy. Obviously the big white tiger. Just by looking at my actions, it should be quite obvious that I prefer the big white tiger. Xia shouldn't get this question wrong, right? Host. Mister, your guesses? Xia. Little yellow chick. Yi Wanwan. Which eyeball of yours saw that I liked little yellow chicks? Cough. These 2 questions might have been a bit difficult. Let's continue to work hard. The host tried to ease the situation. Now that they had gotten 2 questions wrong, if they got the next question wrong as well, they would not get the prize for sure. Yi Wanwan took a deep breath, looked at the big screen, and finally, the third group of images appeared. On the left, there was an image of a gun and a bouquet of fresh flowers on the right. Yi Wanwan's eyes glistened. Great, this is easy. Yi Wanwan chose the fresh flowers without hesitation, then looked at Xia with high expectations. Alas, in the next second, she heard Xia say, M416. Xia was referring to the model of the gun. The green veins on Yi Wanwan's forehead popped out. She finally lost her cool and glared at Xia. What the hell? How did you even guess? Xia was furious as well. Obviously I guessed according to your preferences. I should be the one asking you. How on earth did you choose? Listening to his excuse, Yi Wanwan was agitated. What's wrong with my choices? Which girl wouldn't choose a flower over a gun? For the second question, can't you tell how much I like great white? Why would I choose a little yellow chick? Also, for the first question, what the hell is a black rose? It's black in color. Who would like it? Didn't you see that I planted an entire garden of sunflowers? You obviously. Xixia's face darkened. He opened his mouth but didn't say anything. Chapter 483. Learning how to flirt once the game ended. Yuanwan started to whine to Yihan. This little devil is pissing me off. How could he get such easy questions wrong? I didn't get them wrong. Xixia retorted. You got all 3 questions wrong, yet you're still denying it. Yuanwan exploded. Yihan didn't speak. He stroked her head with his big palms to console her, and there was an unreadable expression on his face. As she fought with Xixia, the atmosphere turned rigid. On stage, the host started to tabulate the scores. Currently, the highest score is 8 points by the pair of lovers at table 23. If no one else takes up the challenge tonight, the prize will go to them. Yihan turned to the sulking girl beside him. Not happy. Yuanwan returned to her senses and smiled. I'm fine. It didn't matter that they lost. Yuanwan wasn't bothered by that. What angered her was Xixia's attitude. He was obviously the one who guessed wrong. Yet he kept pushing the blame onto her. Yihan placed his drink down and asked Yuanwan. Play it with me once? Yuanwan turned to him, stunned. What? Play it with him once? How could Yihan possibly want to play this game? Which means he said it on purpose. And he's actually doing it for me. With that thought, Yuanwan's heart skipped a beat. Oh dear. Why do I find that Yihan's starting to learn how to flirt? Yihan gave her a questioning look. Yuanwan coughed lightly. Of course. Xixia glanced at Yihan then turned away with a stiff expression. Can we play the game? Yuanwan quickly stood up to ask. The host saw that it was Yuanwan who had just answered 3 questions wrong and said apologetically. Every group may join only once. I'm not teaming up with him this time. I'll be teaming up with my boyfriend. Is this okay? Yuanwan asked. The host replied. That's fine. Hence, the game began once again. Yuanwan held the remote control nervously. At the same time, the first group of images appeared on the big screen. On the left was an image of a strawberry cake, and on the right was an almond cake. Almond, Xixia mumbled. Yuanwan didn't listen to him. She stuck to her choice and chose the strawberry cake. I obviously like eating strawberries, alright? Shortly after, Yihan said, strawberry. Yuanwan's eyes lit up. That's right. But this question was very easy. It was unsurprising that Yihan got it right. Host. Congratulations, that's correct. Please take a look at the second set of images. Following that, the second set appeared. An image of a white skirt on the left and a black skirt on the right appeared. Of course it would be the fairy-like flowy white skirt. Yuanwan chose the white skirt with certainty. Yihan, white. He got it right again. This time, Xixia finally shut his mouth. Very soon, the third set of images appeared. On the left was an image of a bottle of wine, and on the right was a bottle of orange juice. Yuanwan chose the orange juice. Yihan, juice. Yuanwan was excited. They got 3 consecutive questions right. As expected, lovers are different. They have telepathy with one another, and this couple got 3 questions correct so far. The host smiled. Yuanwan was all smiles and her mood improved instantly. She certainly had a better rapport with Yihan. Chapter 484. Final set of images. On the left was an image of celery, and on the right was coriander. Yuanwan remembered Yihan didn't like eating celery, so she chose the coriander without hesitation. As expected, Yihan guessed it correctly once again. If we continue like this, there's hope of getting the prize. At first, everyone was just watching for the fun of it, but they gradually started to watch with rapt attention. Yuanwan and Yihan actually managed to correctly answer 8 questions back to back. Even Yuanwan herself was dumbfounded as she stared at Yihan. Damn Yihan, can you read minds? Xixia initially had a glum expression like all this was beneath him, but after they got 8 questions correct, his face changed. This pair of lovers is too awesome. They actually got 8 consecutive questions correct. We're now left with 2 questions. If they get another one right, They'll receive the first prize, and if they get both questions right, they'll walk away with the grand prize," the host said excitedly. The other customers also looked at the two of them out of curiosity. A handsome man and a beautiful woman had such a great rapport. They were simply winners in life. For the 9th set of images, please look at the big screen. Following the words of the host, another set of images appeared on the big screen. There was an image of smoke from chimneys spiraling upwards on the left, and an image of a galaxy of stars on the right. Seeing these two images, Yuanwan pondered for a moment and thought that the first image was more in line with her personality. A comfortable and peaceful life, so that was what she chose. Xia muttered to himself. The second image. Yuanwan already heard Xia's mumblings numerous times, but he got it all wrong and she was completely speechless. From another perspective, this chap was quite amazing to be able to avoid all the right answers. At the same time, Yihan said, "The first image. The answer is correct. My goodness. They got 9 questions right. They've already broken the highest record in our restaurant. Can this pair of super lovers get the last question right? Let's wait and see. I'm getting a little nervous myself." The host took a deep breath dramatically, then revealed the last set of images. Damn. We actually got 9 questions right. Yuanwan was in a daze. Her eyes were wide open and her heart started thumping harder. Finally, the 10th set of images appeared. This set of images was quite unique. They were both images of guns, and these two guns looked almost identical. Yuanwan was somewhat speechless. Is this game called telepathy or spot the difference? These two images look exactly the same? Indeed, the grand prize isn't won so easily. The host was a bit stunned by the images as well. This set of images is quite tricky. The guns look almost exactly the same. Only the handle and muzzle have some minor differences. I wonder which image this beauty will choose. Yuanwan looked at the images carefully many times, unsure whether it was her gut feeling or not, but her eyes kept looking at the first image. She found the first image to be more familiar. Weird. Yuanwan couldn't make up her mind after a long time, and finally, she decided. Why don't I just rely on my intuition? The first image seems more pleasing to the eye after all. I'm not sure if Yihan will guess it right this time. They got some clues through their rapport and understanding of one another for the previous questions, but for this set of images, they could only rely on luck. Finally, after taking a deep breath, Yuanwan selected the first image. Chapter 485, Telepathy? When Yuanwan heard that, she turned to Xia surprised. This is rare. Xia actually guessed it right this time. What a feat. But wait, what's a Colt M2000? Could it be the gun model? What's that? Yuanwan mumbled instinctively. Xia looked at her with a complicated gaze. That's the image you chose. Yuanwan. At the same time, Yihan also turned to look at the big screen. The previous few rounds he was able to answer within seconds, but this time he took a long time to consider his answer. The man's deep and black eyes stared at the screen with an unreadable expression in his eyes. The host said nervously, "We're at the final set of images. What did this customer choose? I wonder if her boyfriend can guess it correctly. We're left with 5 seconds. You'll need to answer quickly. 5, 4, 3, 2. Yuanwan stared at Yihan with her heart in her throat. In the end, almost at the end of the countdown, Yihan finally answered at the last second. The first image. There was total silence in the restaurant for a second, and everyone turned to look at the host. The host was taken aback at first, then her eyes widened as she said excitedly, "Congratulations, sir, you got it right." Yuanwan's choice was revealed on the big screen. Indeed, it was the first image. Everyone in the restaurant applauded. They were all very envious. Wow. They actually got all 10 questions correct. They must have a strong bond with one another. This guy knows how to read minds, right? Otherwise, he must have memorized all the questions. No way. There are hundreds of thousands of images. How could he have memorized them? I'm so jealous of them. You bastard. We only got 2 questions right when we went up. Do you truly love me, huh? The host was still very excited when all of a sudden, a staff member walked up to her and spoke a few words. After that, the host turned to the restaurant patrons and explained, "Our boss is a gun enthusiast. He loves all kinds of classic gun models, and he explained that this set of images wasn't meant to make things difficult for you guys. The two guns might have looked identical, but the fact is, one of them was real while the other was a fake, and the real gun was the one in the first image." The host then turned to Yi Wanwan and asked, "Could it be that this young lady also shares the same interest and identified that the gun in the first image was real?" Faced with the host's question, Yi Wanwan laughed helplessly. "I didn't know all this. It was just a blind guess." The host laughed. "The two of you truly have telepathic powers. Congratulations to the both of you for winning the grand prize tonight. And I wish you both a harmonious relationship together till a ripe old age." Yi Wanwan. "Thank you." The host congratulated them a few more times, then presented the cash prize on the spot. After dinner, Yi Wanwan hugged Si Yihan's arm and left the restaurant in high spirits with their $30,000 prize. "Darling, we certainly have telepathic powers with one another. We're a match made in heaven." In her previous life, Si Yihan was very controlling of her and knew every single thing about her like the back of his hand. In the past, she hated being controlled. But after the little game today, she suddenly felt differently. This feeling of being understood, it wasn't that hard to accept. Instead, it made her feel. Si Yihan stared at the girl's happy little face, but he seemed a bit distracted. "As long as you're happy." Xia, who was following behind them, sneered with a mocking expression. "Tisk telepathy?" Yi Wanwan instantly turned around and glared at Xia. "I haven't gotten to you yet. How exactly did you manage to avoid getting all the right answers, huh?" Xia's face turned gloomy. "Who said I was the one who was wrong?" The corners of Yi Wanwan's lips twitched. Yes, at least you got the last question right. And it was because Xia knew more about guns and managed to identify the real gun, so he picked the first image. Chapter 486. Unusual. The driver dropped Xia off first. After the car stopped, Yi Wanwan took out $100 from the grand prize envelope. "Come, eldest nephew, this is your allowance." Xia looked at the $100 Yi Wanwan was handing over. His mouth twitched and he was obviously offended by it, but he still took it nonetheless. In the evening breeze, Xia stood outside the car and glanced at Si Yihan coldly, then looked at Yi Wanwan. "Idiotic woman." As he was scolding her for no apparent reason, Yi Wanwan's face darkened instantly. "This little devil is asking for a beating, huh?" Without waiting for Yi Wanwan to respond, Xia placed one hand in his pocket, turned around and disappeared into the night. After dropping Xia off, the car soon arrived at Jin Garden. By the time they reached Jin Garden, it was already quite late, and Yi Wanwan started nagging at Si Yihan to go to bed on time. Lying in bed, Yi Wanwan couldn't fall asleep. She kept tossing and turning the whole time, her mind replaying the scenes of the game from that day. Actually, when she made her choices today, there were many times when she nearly chose the opposite image, but in the end, in order to align with her usual habits and preferences, and to allow Si Yihan to guess accurately, she decided to go with the other image. But it wasn't weird to do that, right? After all, a person's preferences, habits, and actions could change. But what made her uneasy was that she found Xia's reaction a little weird today. Even Si Yihan's attitude was somewhat unusual. With that thought, Yi Wanwan subconsciously turned to the man next to her. Si Yihan was very quiet when he slept, as usual. So quiet that sometimes, she could forget he was there altogether. So although they'd been sleeping in the same bed for such a long time, Yi Wanwan didn't find it uncomfortable at all. Sometimes she wondered if this guy even liked women. She realized her existence was akin to a wooden stick or pillow. Yi Wanwan's thoughts ran wild while she tossed and turned in bed. Probably awakened by her, an arm suddenly reached out next to her and pulled her into his embrace. In that split second, she was plastered to a hard chest. The thumping of his heart resounded like the beating of drums in her ears. Yi Wanwan was stunned for a few seconds, then she looked up. Her eyes met a clear and awake gaze. In the dark, Si Yihan's stare was extremely aggressive, reminding her of the intense fear she felt before her rebirth, like she was bound by numerous chains and an inescapable net, imprisoning her in his world. This gaze made Yi Wanwan furrow her brows. A desire to escape arose instinctively. Did I wake you up?" Before Yi Wanwan could finish her sentence, Si Yihan lowered his head without warning. His cold lips swallowed her voice. Yi Wanwan's pupils constricted. She was stunned. At the same time, he started moving. A wide palm dove under her top, his coarse fingers touched her skin and fumbled around roughly. His kisses became increasingly out of control, annihilating her mouth like he was besieging a territory, devouring her lips and tongue as if he wanted to swallow her whole. Chapter 487. I don't plan on having kids at this current moment. She was rudely awakened by all her terrible memories of him. Terrorizing, ruthless, crazy. A perverted desire to control. Si Yihan hadn't acted like that in a long time. Why did he lose his temper all of a sudden? There was absolutely nothing that happened today that could have possibly ticked him off. On the contrary, it had been quite a pleasant day. With Si Yihan in this state, Yi Wanwan didn't dare to resist at all. Otherwise, all the effort she put in this whole time might go down the drain. Not to mention that when she decided not to provoke or disobey him anymore, she mentally prepared herself for this inevitability. "Wanwan," the man whispered in her ear. It was a kind of lust completely different from his usual cold demeanor. Since Yi Wanwan was already so nervous that her nerves were taut, this gentle whisper inexplicably caused her to shudder for a moment. "Remember what I said?" What? Yi Wanwan was terrified. "Don't believe him." "Don't believe whom?" Yi Wanwan's mind was all over the place. She was distracted for a long time before finally reacting to Si Yihan's words. What he meant was, "Don't believe what Si Xia says." She remembered that after her rebirth, Si Xia, who had no relations with her whatsoever, suddenly started to get close to her, and it was during that period of time when Si Yihan said the exact same thing to her, telling her not to believe Si Xia. Yi Wanwan didn't think much of it, and only felt a sense of security from Si Yihan. Her illogical intuition told her that no matter who wanted to harm her in this world, that person would never be Si Yihan. Yi Wanwan nodded. "And you're the only one I trust." Her eyes seemed to carry a continuous, mystic drizzle. The hostility in Si Yihan's body was slowly extinguished by her gaze, and his eyes started to turn clear. It was as if Si Yihan had just gone through an intensive battle. The storm on his face slowly calmed down, and turned into an intense fatigue. Noticing that Si Yihan closed his eyes, Yi Wanwan let out a long sigh. Why Si Yihan so afraid of Si Xia? Yi Wanwan instinctively thought of the true mastermind hidden in the Si family. She had been researching the elders and various power factions in the Si family, but she still turned up with no leads. Could it be that the mastermind is related to Si Xia? Si Xia was one of the few left in the direct line of descendants who possessed the right of inheritance, so it wasn't entirely impossible that he wanted to fight for the seat of the master. It seemed like Si Xia and Si Yihan's relationship was as incompatible as fire and water. The only thing was that Yi Wanwan felt Si Xia wasn't the cold-blooded type who could hurt even the old madam. With that thought, Yi Wanwan suddenly realized her head was filled with Si Yihan's issues. She had planned to pacify him temporarily and wait until the day he lost interest in her or a chance to leave, but unknowingly, she found herself becoming deeply involved with him. In her confusion, a man's voice suddenly reached her ears. "Grandma is hoping we'll have a child." After she heard Si Yihan's words, Yi Wanwan's eyes widened in shock. What? A child? We haven't even gotten married. How did she even jump to the idea of having a child? Si Yihan sensed her stiffening up and his tone returned to its usual iciness. "Don't worry, I don't have that intention." Chapter 488. Can consider having one. She knew Si Yihan didn't plan on having kids. After all, she was married to him for so many years in her previous life. Yet they didn't have any. Is it because he knows he doesn't have long to live so he doesn't want any? In this life, they hadn't even gotten married. With her current status and background, she already upset the Si family's elders by being Si Yihan's girlfriend. If she really became the mistress of the household, she'd definitely be the target of a multitude of arrows. In her previous life, if Si Yihan hadn't been provoked by her running away with Gu Yuzhe, Maybe he wouldn't have married her so soon? He insisted on their untimely marriage, which triggered the opposition of the entire family clan. She remembered that when they got a divorce in her past life, Siyihan's body was nearing its end. The conflicts in the family intensified till they were irreconcilable. Each faction of power was fighting with the others. Everything was in a mess, and they were even attacked by an unknown outside power. In this life, no matter what the considerations were, she didn't want to make a mistake at a time like this and allow things to escalate to that stage again, much less have children. Due to both Siyihan's current condition and her own issues, they were incapable of assuming responsibility for the arrival of a baby. Yi Wanwan was in a daze. I don't want any either. The moonlight filtered through the window panes, making Siyihan's face appear as if it was covered in a layer of frost. Yi Wanwan mumbled, with our current situation, we're not in a good position to have a baby. It would be irresponsible to have a little life in our hands. Anyway, with your health like this, do you really want me to not only be a widow but a single mother as well? Speaking up till this point, Yi Wanwan paused, then continued. If, after saying this one word, Yi Wanwan didn't say anything else. Slight waves appeared in Siyihan's deathly still eyes as deep as an abyss. He turned towards her, quietly waiting for her to continue her sentence. Yi Wanwan regretted speaking the word the moment it left her mouth, but he kept staring at her, so she could only cough lightly and finish the rest of her sentence. If your health improves, we can consider having one. The second she said that, the cold moonlight reflected in Siyihan's eyes seemed to crack into pieces in a flash. His gaze of disbelief was directed straight at her like it was trying to pry into her soul. Yi Wanwan's heart trembled. She covered Siyihan's eyes, which was causing her to be flustered, and she urged, "You're not allowed to talk anymore, sleep now." Siyihan lifted his hand and held her little hand that was covering his eyes, then he placed it on top of his chest. The heartbeat under her palm seemed very fast. After some time in the quiet night, his hoarse voice resounded. "Okay." His chest moved slightly when he spoke, and the little hand above his chest couldn't help but heat up. Shortly after, his calm and long breaths could be heard. Yi Wanwan's hand was still being held by him, and she could feel his rhythmic heartbeat. Yi Wanwan turned and looked at him while he slept, then sighed in resentment. Must he be so obedient? He really fell asleep just like that. Great, now it's my turn to have insomnia. Chapter 489. Health condition. There was nobody next to her when she woke up. Siyihan's up already? Yi Wanwan looked at her phone to see that it was almost noon. Since she wasn't able to fall asleep last night, she ended up sleeping in today. Yi Wanwan sat in bed for a while, then rubbed her eyes and got up. When she walked past the study, Yi Wanwan saw two little maids standing by the door, whispering to one another. "Are you sure? Ninth Master immediately drank it the moment you brought it in?" "That's right." Ninth Master was working at the time, and his face was terrifying, probably because his work was giving him some trouble. "I was about to leave and come back later, but in the end Ninth Master suddenly told me to stop and made me bring the medicine over, then he drank it all without stopping." "No way. You're too lucky, huh?" "Not far off." Yi Wanwan felt a deep sense of relief when she heard that. Someone finally came to his senses. She no longer had to worry about him taking his medication on time. Even the most important thing, sleep, was being resolved. Now she had to make sure he maintained a calm state of mind. He couldn't be too hot-tempered, agitated, or worn out. Not a single thing could be overlooked. All this sounded easily achievable, but they were all extraordinarily challenging when it came to Siyihan. The most difficult part was preventing him from getting worn out. Siyihan didn't trust anybody, so he handled everything personally. Nothing could be done about this, and it was unavoidable. And it was exactly because of this that Siyihan overexerted himself till his health deteriorated to this state, and his entire soul was sucked out in her previous life. There was no way around it. The greater the power, the greater the responsibility. Siyihan had to bear the responsibility since he was in charge, and it was simply unrealistic to force him to put everything aside right now. Just how can I get him to not overwork himself? Yi Wanwan stood by the door, watching Siyihan coughing lightly, and her mood turned gloomy. She didn't have a solution to that problem yet, and she could only nag at him to take regular breaks. I'll think of something when Sun Baichao performs a routine body checkup on Si Yihan later. In the blink of an eye, it was the day of the checkup. Yi Wanwan, the old madam, and Si Yihan went to Sun Baichao's private residence for a comprehensive diagnosis of Si Yihan's condition. At this moment, half a month had passed since Sun Baichao predicted that Si Yihan would be left with only 6 months to live. Yi Wanwan accompanied the old madam and waited outside with a mixed mood. "Grandma, don't worry. Audiobook has been taking his medications on time and getting lots of rest. His mood has also been more stable lately. Maybe there'll be an improvement." Yi Wanwan comforted her. The old madam knew Yi Wanwan had been by her grandson's side all this time. She patted Yi Wanwan's hand and sighed. Hopefully. Sui stared at the tightly shut metal door with a heavy heart as well. During this period of time, he witnessed how much effort Yi Wanwan put in to help Ninth Master's health recover. But Ninth Master's body hadn't been overworked just a single day or two, and it had already started to worsen. So how could he recuperate within such a short period of time? I'm afraid the results this time won't look too good either. What's worse was that news of Ninth Master's illness had been exaggerated and spread throughout the entire family clan. They probably couldn't hide it anymore. After waiting an entire hour, the metal door finally opened. Si Yihan walked out with a slightly pale look. "Audiobook." Yi Wanwan instantly walked over to help him. The temperature had dropped the night before and Si Yihan woke up with a cold that morning. Even though he was merely exposed to the cold for a little while, his body's immune system was indeed weakening rapidly. Chapter 490. Organ Transplant. Sun Baichao brought them to sit in the lobby and deliberated for a long time before finally speaking. "Since I predicted that Ninth Young Master's organs might begin to fail, I asked him to come over to do a more thorough checkup this time." "The results? What were the results?" the old madam probed impatiently. Yi Wanwan looked at Sun Baichao with a serious expression. Sun Baichao said, "There's indeed been a slight improvement in Ninth Young Master's health." Before the old madam could rejoice, Sun Baichao changed his tone. He said gravely, "However, this level of improvement is tantamount to a drop of water in a bucket for Ninth Young Master. His health is just like a constant wildfire. A small drizzle can't extinguish it. I took a look and many organs in his body have begun to fail, especially his liver and kidneys. They're in a more dire state." When the old madam heard that, her body trembled and she slumped into the red wooden chair behind her. Yi Wanwan's heart tightened as well. "Still didn't work?" Sui sighed lightly and his expression turned gloomy. "His organs are failing, so what should we do?" The old madam forced herself to maintain her composure. Sun Baichao replied, "We can only perform an organ transplant. Also, the sooner the better. Definitely within 3 months, before the organ is completely damaged." "Will he improve after the transplant?" the old madam asked immediately. Sun Baichao shook his head. "An organ transplant would only treat the symptoms, not the root cause. Ninth Young Master's body is akin to nutrient-poor soil. When a flower withers and you replace it with another flower, it will only live for a short while. That being said, performing an organ transplant is the only solution at the moment." Although they had a solution, this solution was like quenching one's thirst with poison. 1. Yi Wanwan never expected that things would progress the same way as in her past life. Ever since her rebirth, she had never felt so helpless before. She gave everything her all, but she still couldn't change his fate or ending. Does he really have to go through an organ transplant? Are there really no other options? Yi Wanwan asked, unwilling to give up. Sun Baichao said, "According to the progression of Ninth Young Master's condition, this is indeed the case." Yi Wanwan balled her hands into fists and said with crystal clear eyes, "Dr. Sun, you mentioned just now that Audio's condition improved slightly. What if I can continue to maintain his health and return it to its optimal state within 3 months? Looking at her resolute gaze, Sun Baichao hesitated for a bit. After Sun Baichao thought it through carefully, he said, "In theory, if his body can recuperate to its optimal state in such a short period of time, allowing his organs to slowly recover, then of course he wouldn't have to do the transplant. But the possibility of this happening is very low. Yi Wanwan, But there's still a possibility, right? There is a possibility, but Miss Yi, you must be aware that ninth young master's condition is too complicated. There are many issues I'm unable to foresee still. His failing organs are like a ticking time bomb. If you're unable to help him recover, his condition and organs could continue to worsen within 3 months, or they might worsen abruptly one day, endangering his life at any moment. 1. A temporary relief which results in a disaster. Chapter 491. Family clan meeting. I'll leave you to think it through. Sun Bai Chao sighed, then turned around and left. The old madam was depressed. She looked at her grandson with heartache. Little ninth, what do you think? How about you get the organ transplant as soon as possible? Otherwise, what if? The old madam didn't dare to finish her sentence. After a moment of silence, Si Yi Han said with an icy expression, "We'll hold a meeting to decide." When Yi Wanwan heard that, she furrowed her brows. A meeting? After she thought about it, she understood Si Yi Han's intentions. Now that news of Si Yi Han's illness had been leaked, almost everyone in the clan had heard about his condition. Moreover, going for an operation was such a big deal that he definitely wouldn't be able to hide it. Rather than keeping it from the family and forcing them to make wild guesses, it was better to just hold a meeting with the clan directly and discuss this issue with the elders openly. 2 hours later, at the Si family's old residence, all the elders were gathered there and Sun Bai Chao was present as well. Yi Wanwan sat on the sofa in the corner, slightly distracted. Nobody noticed Yi Wanwan. Everyone's attention was on Sun Bai Chao. Seeing that the great Dr. Sun was present, all the elders' expressions were somewhat subtle, guessing that this family meeting would definitely be related to the rumors about Si Yi Han's critical illness and imminent death. Everyone held their breaths and looked at the old madam and Si Yi Han with rapt attention. The old madam was sitting on the sofa with a cane in her hand. If she didn't have that to support herself, she probably wouldn't even be able to sit still. The old madam swept a stern gaze at everyone present in the room, then said in a cold tone, "I know everyone's been concerned for little 9th's health during this period of time. Little 9th's condition is such a serious issue that we naturally couldn't hide it from all of you. So today, I brought Dr. Sun to explain little 9th's health condition. At the same time, there is something we need to discuss." Everyone started whispering following the old madam's words. Health condition? Seems like the rumors weren't fabricated. And it's highly possible that his illness has already worsened to a stage where he can no longer hide it. Among the clan members, Si Mingli subtly revealed a mocking expression. "TSK, I thought Si Yi Han was going to hide this until his death. I didn't think he would choose to address it personally. But I expected this anyway. With his illness becoming more and more serious, this is something that cannot be kept secret for long." The white-bearded elder, Si Mingrong, spoke with a darkened expression. "Sister-in-law, what exactly is going on with Master's health? All of you should listen to Dr. Sun." The old madam then shut her eyes and remained silent. Sun Bai Chao glanced at the old madam, then Si Yi Han. He started explaining Si Yi Han's condition to the elders. After Sun Bai Chao was done, the old madam said, "Dr. Sun recommends little ninth undergo an organ transplant as soon as possible within 3 months. What do all of you think?" Hearing Sun Bai Chao and the old madam's words, everyone was stunned for quite some time. Following that, there was a huge uproar. No wonder Si Yi Han opened up about his illness. It's already reached such a serious stage. The rumors were true. There's no hope for Si Yi Han. According to what Dr. Sun said, of course we have to go through with the organ transplant. Otherwise, wouldn't Master's life be in danger at any moment? If we go with the organ transplant, at least he'll be able to hang on for a few years, but if he continues like this, he might not even make it 6 more months. Chapter 492. Determine his life or death. With a big family clan like the Si family, it wasn't a problem even if they needed a lifetime supply of organs, much less 1 or 2. Everyone was immersed in fear about the Master's critical illness, and worried about what would happen if Si Yi Han fell from power, the family crumbled, and how it would affect their interests. They were only thinking about how to quickly prolong Si Yi Han's life. However, nobody considered whether Si Yihan's weak body could handle frequent operations or tolerate the pain. And it would all be for what? He would barely obtain a few more years to live. In Yi Wanwan's previous life, the Si family became so chaotic in the end because Si Yihan didn't have enough energy to cope with those issues anymore at the later stage of his illness. Old Madam, Uncle Rong, please find suitable organs for Master quickly. That's right. Otherwise, with Master's condition, anything may happen at any time. Then the Si family would be in chaos. I'm afraid the clans and powers that have been monitoring our Si family closely have already gotten the news. Among the ruckus, Si Mingrong deliberated for a long time before saying, "Sister-in-law, what's your decision?" The old madam's fingers trembled as she held on to her Buddha pearls. She slowly opened her eyes. If Audiobook didn't go for the operation, he would be left with only 6 months to live, but because his organs were failing, he could technically die anytime. However, if Audiobook went for the operation, he would only be able to hold on for a few years, and within those few years, he might have to endure the torture of multiple operations. Not to mention the possibility of a transplant rejection, and all kinds of after effects, including the burden on his body. She really couldn't make a decision, but she didn't have a choice. She wanted Audiobook to live no matter the cost, even if it was just for a few more days. After a long while, the old madam finally opened her eyes and spoke in an extremely lethargic tone. "We'll act according to what all of you suggested." Si Mingrong expected this decision from the old madam. He let out a long sigh and didn't say a word. Everyone chimed in. "Then we should arrange for the operation right away. We can't delay it any longer." Si Mingli's eyes glistened and he said, "While the master goes for his operation, second brother, all the elders and I will settle everything with regards to the company and family clan. Master, you don't have to worry at all. Take care of your health." "TSK don't have to worry?" It was all these people who took advantage of Si Yihan's critical illness and frantically started to strive for their own gains. In the corner, Yi Wanwan looked at Si Yihan. He had only spoken a few words throughout the meeting, allowing the elders to determine his life or death, his fate. She knew Si Yihan himself would have agreed to the operation. In her previous life, he chose the operation as well, so it was impossible to rely on Si Yihan to veto the decision of the elders. Once the decision was made, Si Yihan would have to go through everything that happened in her past life. Si Yihan's physique was unique, so he had a case of extremely serious transplant rejection. From all the operations and transplant rejections, she wouldn't be able to restore his health no matter how hard she tried. His life was safe for the time being, but it was only for a few years. After the old madam's nod and Si Yihan's tacit approval, everyone started discussing the various matters relating to the operation. Si Mingrong stood up and said, "Since nobody has any objections, then the master's operation has been decided." Following this, the moment Si Mingrong stood up to speak, a cold and clear voice suddenly came from the corner of the room. "I object." Chapter 493. Give me 3 months. The chaotic hall was now in total silence. This woman again. A tinge of gloominess clouded Si Mingli's eyes. When Si Mingrong and the other elders saw that Yi Wanwan interrupted so suddenly at this point in time, their faces turned a little ugly. Si Yihan's pupils shifted slightly when she spoke up. He looked at her. Feng Yiping used the lid of his teacup to stroke the tea leaves, and he sneered in a tone like he was speaking to some commoner. "Tetha, you object? Who are you to object?" Yi Wanwan turned to Feng Yiping expressionless. Director Feng seems to be as forgetful as his precious daughter. Does it run in the family? You. Feng Yiping wanted to lash out, but once he noticed Si Yihan from the corners of his eyes, he didn't dare to say another word. After all, this woman still had a status as the future mistress of the household. Yi Wanwan let Feng Yiping be. She stood up, ignored all the hateful and mocking stares and said, "If an organ transplant can help Audiobook live a proper life, I wouldn't have any objections. But a transplant wouldn't solve the root of the problem. At most, he'll live for another few years, but it's definitely not the best solution." Si Mingli scoffed. "What does a little brat like you know, talking nonsense here? Dr. Sun already said the master only has 6 months to live. If he doesn't go for the operation, All he can do is wait for death. You actually objected to the operation at a time like this. What malicious intentions do you have? After Si Mingli was done talking, the other elders chimed in and supported him. Faced with everyone's criticism, Yi Wanwan's gaze wasn't at all fearful. Ajio's body can recuperate as long as he takes proper care of it and follows Dr. Sun's medication and acupuncture treatments. I took care of Ajio for half a month and his body has already shown signs of improvement. Dr. Sun can testify to this. Sun Baichao nodded. It has indeed, but his recuperation rate can't keep up with ninth young master's deteriorating health, which is why I suggested the operation. Of course, if it's possible to nurse his health back to normal, that would be best. Then ninth master's life expectancy would be the same as any ordinary person's. When Yi Wanwan heard that, her clear eyes had a hint of menace as she swept her gaze across everyone present. So please give me 3 months to continue to help Ajio recuperate. If Dr. Sun still concludes that Ajio needs the surgery, I have nothing to say. Yi Wanwan's words were immediately met with the objection of all the elders present. What a joke! Give you 3 months. Do you have any idea how much danger the master would be in for the next 3 months? I think if you're not ignorant and dumb then you're just trying to harm the master. Master has so many renowned doctors by his side. The great Dr. Sun's here as well. If his health can be nursed back, it would have been done much earlier. Who are you to criticize and give us orders? No way. Placing the master's life in the hands of an ignorant woman is just ridiculous. If something happens to the master during these 3 months, can she bear the responsibility? She really won't be able to. As the hall was in a ruckus, a frosty voice came from the main seat. The man's hoarse voice wasn't loud but it shut everyone up instantly, and they all turned to look at Si Yihan at the same time. Si Yihan's face was slightly pale, but the hostility in his eyes was evident, enveloping the entire hall. After a brief moment of dead silence, Si Yihan continued. So I will bear the responsibility. Chapter 494. If I die following what Si Yihan said, after a few seconds of silence, there was a storm of protests in the hall. What Si Yihan means is, he agrees with this woman and won't do the operation. In a moment, all the elders' faces changed drastically, and they were extremely anxious. Master, this can't be. You really shouldn't. This is too rash. How could you not trust in great Dr. Sun's words, and believe this ignorant woman instead? Master, your health involves the rise and fall of our entire family clan. How could you act so carelessly? Si Mingrong's face became unusually dark. At first, he gave this woman some face on account of the master and old madam, tacitly allowing her to join the family clan's meeting, but this woman was a little too reckless. This matter concerned the master's family name. Si Mingrong couldn't tolerate it any further as he used the cane to prop himself up. Master! Alas, before Si Mingrong could speak, Si Yihan's gaze interrupted him. In 3 months, if the recuperation fails, we'll arrange for the surgery. If I die. Everyone turned to Si Yihan aghast. Si Yihan's handsome face was indifferent as he continued. All matters relating to the Si family shall proceed according to my will. Hearing the word will, the old madam's face was overcome with sorrow. She wanted to speak, but eventually kept silent. Although she wasn't pleased with Yi Wanwan taking things into her own hands, she was also quite moved by what she said. If little 9th's health could really recover, and he could live a long and healthy life like other people, that would be ideal. How can I bear to let little 9th live with the pain of his illness and operations over the next few years? But if this fails, little 9th could lose his life any time. Yi Wanwan's heart trembled. Si Yihan had even written his will already. Seeing that their master had made up his mind, there was definitely no chance of changing it. Everyone glared at Yi Wanwan like they wanted to slice her into 1,000 pieces. Feng Yiping stood up to leave. He shook his head and sighed in anguish. I said this before. Master will die in the hands of this woman someday. If the mistress of the household was Ruashi, things wouldn't be like this. Master insists on believing that woman, so nothing we say now will help. Seeing the elders' reactions, Si Mingli took great pleasure in them. TSK dumb woman. She actually dared to object to all the elders' opinions and stop Si-Han from going for the operation. She's truly reckless. If something happens to Si-Han, she'll be the first to be blamed, then I won't have to get my hands dirty anymore. He didn't expect that a smart guy like Si-Han would end up falling into the hands of a woman. It seems like our plan can be executed very soon. I really have to thank her for that. At the end of a deserted hallway, Su Changquan was worried. Miss Yi was too rash today. Su Yi's expression was grave as well. Ever since Miss Yi started helping Ninth Master recuperate, Ninth Master's body and condition have improved. If it wasn't for Miss Yi, Ninth Master would be in a much worse state. Then is Miss Yi confident she can do this? Su Changquan probed anxiously. Su Yi shook his head. I'm not sure either. But he felt she hadn't done that on a whim. Su Changquan was extremely concerned. What should we do? Chapter 495. I'll give you whatever you want that night. Si-Han had a high fever. It was initially just a slight cold, but it suddenly turned into a high fever, causing all the servants in Jean Garden to become terribly busy, and all the private doctors were on standby, afraid that something would happen to the master. Si-Han's body was like a piece of brittle glass. Any small illness could ignite an inextinguishable fire. On the large light gray bed in the bedroom, Si-Han's breathing was rapid and his face was flushed. Yi Wanwan kept wringing an ice towel dry for him to lower his temperature, and she wiped his body with alcohol. The moment she retracted her arm to put the towel down, he suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist. Since he used too much force, a burst of pain came from Yi Wanwan's wrist, and her bones were nearly shattered. Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows and she used her other hand to lightly pat his back. His furrowed brows relaxed a little, but he still held on and didn't let go of her wrist. Yi Wanwan sat at the bedside and stared at him on the bed with a complicated gaze. Having been by Si-Han's side for so long, she thought she already knew this man inside out. Yet sometimes she felt like she didn't really know him at all. Yi Wanwan's fingers touched his pale and thin lips, then moved slowly down to his chest, and she mumbled absent-mindedly, Si-Han, why do you trust me? Yi Wanwan stared at his unbelievably handsome face. She smiled bitterly and sighed lightly. Aren't you afraid? I really want your life. Si-Han frowned, then opened his eyes slowly. His pair of deep, cold eyes seemed to be shrouded by a haze, and when he looked at her, it was as if she was the only person in the world. I'll give you whatever you want. Yi Wanwan felt like her heart was clasped tightly by a giant claw. She bit her lips and stared at the man who was obviously muddled by his fever. I don't want that sort of thing. You have to keep living. You're not allowed to die, do you hear me? His eyes slowly closed due to exhaustion. A whisper escaped from his lips. Sure. Yi Wanwan clenched her fists. Liar. He agrees so easily each time. Does he even take his promises seriously? The next morning, the storm had ceased and the air turned cold. When Yi Wanwan opened her eyes, she realized that she fell asleep unknowingly by Si-Han's bedside. She was only wearing thin pajamas, but surprisingly, she didn't feel cold at all. From the corners of her eyes, she saw what seemed to be a few strands of silvery white hairs on the carpet. Great White was here? At this moment, there were a few small movements by her side, and Yi Wanwan quickly turned to the bed. Si-Han twitched his fingers like he was about to wake up. Yi Wanwan hurriedly reached out to touch Si-Han's forehead. After a few seconds, Yi Wanwan's grave expression became gentler. Thank goodness, the fever's gone. She had just let out a sigh when she was immediately met with a pair of light brown eyes, clear and cool like the sky after a rain. You're awake. Do you feel better? Yi Wanwan looked at the man in bed. Si-Han didn't say a word, and his eyes remained fixated on her like he hadn't completely woken up. Yi Wanwan stared at him. Do you remember what you promised me last night? What? Si-Han asked in a hoarse voice. Yi Wanwan's face darkened instantly. I knew it, it was all a bunch of lies. Yi Wanwan was still mad when a coarse hand slowly caressed her face. I remember, I won't die. Chapter 496. Consult the lady boss. It was as if that endless darkness would swallow him whole. Only a tinge of warmth in his palm pushed him forward to keep going and not stop. Unsure of how much time had passed, he finally escaped from the darkness and saw a weak glow. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw the morning sun shining in, dancing on the girl's troubled little face. She asked him whether he still remembered what he promised her last night. "How could I not?" She said, "I have to keep living." At this moment, she raised her brows and looked quite surprised that he actually remembered. Her pair of sharp eyes was like the light of the whole world. A hint of craftiness flashed in Yi Wanwan's eyes as she moved closer and said softly, "Then, do you remember all the other things you said?" Si Yihan couldn't help himself, and reached out to touch her eyelashes that were fluttering like a butterfly. "What did I say?" The girl revealed a sly expression. "You said you'll give me whatever I want. You were muddled by your fever last night, and not only did you say that you'll give me whatever I want, you even said that you love me so much that you can't free yourself, and from now on, you'll listen to everything I say and obey me." Seeing that Si Yihan was staring at her in silence, Yi Wanwan raised her brows. "What? You don't believe me? You think I'm lying to you?" Yi Wanwan spoke with such a righteous tone, but the truth was that only one phrase was real. Si Yihan's eyes looked as if a light breeze was blowing on the surface of a lake and forming small ripples as he said softly, "No, that does sound like what I would say." When Yi Wanwan heard that, she was dumbfounded. "Huh? Sounds like what he would say?" Instinctively, she reached out to touch Si Yihan's forehead once again, and thought he really was muddled by the fever. "I tricked him on purpose, yet he can't even tell? And even said that these mushy words sound like something he would say? Not tricking him would be a waste." Yi Wanwan thought to herself, so she continued, "Cough, then you must remember your promise and keep your word." Then, there was a knock on the door. Sui stood by the door. "Ninth Master, Miss Wanwan." "Housekeeper Su, is anything the matter?" Yi Wanwan asked. Sui looked at his master on the bed worriedly. "Miss Wanwan, Ninth Master's health. The fever has subsided," Yi Wanwan replied. Sui heaved a sigh of relief, but after that, he looked like he was in a difficult position and was holding his words back. After pondering for some time, he decided to say it anyway. "Director Shui and Miss Ruoshi have been waiting outside for a long time. There's an important document from Shen City that requires Ninth Master's signature." Hearing what Sui said, Yi Wanwan's expression, which had just become gentler, turned icy in an instant. Sui obviously knew about Si Yihan's current condition, but he had an obligation to report this and couldn't possibly hide it, so he had summoned all his courage to come over. Sui turned to Si Yihan, waiting for instructions. "Ninth Master, please see if..." Si Yihan slowly sat up, leaned against the headboard, and his eyes paused on Yi Wanwan's little icy face. Then he turned to Sui and said casually, "Don't have to consult me." This, Sui was slightly stunned. "If I don't consult him, who should I consult?" Yi Wanwan's face was rigid and she said expressionlessly, "Consult me." Sui. Chapter 497. "I'll take over." Yi Wanwan stood upright after she finished speaking and walked towards the door. When she was halfway out the door, she turned and stared at the man on the bed, still worried. "It's still early, go back to sleep." Si Yihan's tone had a subtle smile in it. N. Sui stood in a daze for a long time before coming to his senses, and he jogged to keep up with Yi Wanwan. Behind them, the man looked at the retreating figure of the girl with a hint of tenderness he hadn't felt before. Not long after Yi Wanwan left, there were sounds of extremely light paw prints stepping on the floor. A silvery white figure strode over to the front of the man's bed silently, then it laid down on the blanket by his bedside meekly. Si Yihan looked at the white tiger by his bed and the tenderness in his eyes turned cold. "Slaughter if I don't make it." Si Yihan lowered his eyes, clutched his chest and coughed lightly, then reached out to stroke the white tiger's fur. "If one day I'm no longer around, be nicer to her." Slaughter whipped its tail in annoyance and let out a low roar like he was upset and offended. Downstairs. Sure enough, Qin Ruoshi and a middle-aged man were waiting at the same spot, and they both looked very anxious. A pair of footsteps came from upstairs and both of them turned to look. In the end, they saw that the person coming down wasn't Si Yihan, but Yi Wanwan instead. Sui followed behind her. Yi Wanwan walked straight to the sofa in the living room, sat down and said to the two people, "Please take a seat." The person in charge of the subsidiary company, Shueli, was taken aback and he looked at Qin Ruoshi then asked instinctively, "Where's Ninth Master?" "Yi Wanwan. You can just tell me directly if there's anything you need to discuss with him." When Qin Ruoshi heard that, her eyes flashed. Shueli frowned and said, "There are a couple urgent documents from the subsidiary company in Shin City that require Ninth Master's verification and signature." Yi Wanwan nodded. "Got it, hand them over to me." Shueli's face turned slightly ugly and he said sternly, "These contracts are extremely important, and they're also classified. They can't simply be handed over to anyone, and must only be in Ninth Master's hands." Yi Wanwan was unruffled and she shuffled in her position as she replied without a change in expression, "From now on, I'll take over all these matters." "What? She'll take over?" "Director Qin, this." Shueli instinctively turned to Qin Ruoshi, seeking her opinion. Qin Ruoshi's calm face finally changed a little. "Miss Yi, this is a really crucial matter. It's better if we consult CEOC once he's awake." "TSK, she's finally starting to panic, huh?" It was only when Yi Wanwan came into conflict with her interests that Qin Ruoshi realized her power. Yi Wanwan smiled sarcastically at Qin Ruoshi. "Sorry, Miss Qin. Nothing is more crucial to me than my boyfriend's health." Yi Wanwan's tone was arrogant and wasn't apprehensive at all. After all, even if Qin Ruoshi complained to the elders and old madam, her actions were justified. Qin Ruoshi also knew that as long as Yi Wanwan used the excuse of Si Yihan's health, she couldn't do anything to her. Qin Ruoshi replied diplomatically, "We obviously care about CEOC's health as well. If it wasn't something urgent, we wouldn't disturb him either. But these documents require CEOC's signature before noon today, and this was also arranged by CEOC himself a month ago. So I hope Miss Yi will allow Ninth Master to verify this." Chapter 498. Vying. The middle-aged man couldn't hold it in anymore. "Since when did we have to deal with an outsider's attitude when we're here to report about work? Miss, I don't think you have the authority to stop us from seeing Ninth Master." At this moment, Sui coughed lightly and explained, "Director Shui, Miss Ruoshi, it was Ninth Master himself who allowed Miss Wanwan to deal with this matter. If there's anything the two of you need to report, please tell it directly to Miss Wanwan. She will pass the documents over to Ninth Master." Shueli's words were immediately cut off by Sui and Qin Ruoshi went quiet as well. Yi Wanwan yawned lazily and looked somewhat impatient. "Do you still have a problem?" Qin Ruoshi's expression kept changing. After a long while she finally said, "Since it's what COC wants, we'll hand the documents over to Miss Yi. CEOC's still recuperating. He really shouldn't exert himself." Shueli got anxious when he heard her. "How could we do this? How could we let an outsider handle such an important task?" Qin Ruoshi glanced at Yi Wanwan. "Miss Wanwan is the future mistress. How is she an outsider?" "What future mistress? She's obviously a vixen who uses her looks to get what she wants." Shueli didn't dare to say the rest of his sentence out loud, and could only pass the documents over to Yi Wanwan unwillingly. Walking out of the big gate, Shueli still had a stomach full of anger. "Director Qin, do we really have to let this woman meddle with such an important matter? With Ninth Master's condition like this, he can't be thinking clearly at all. If that woman did something behind Ninth Master's back, the consequences will be unthinkable." Qin Ruoshi furrowed her brows. "Since she's someone Audio trusts, she probably wouldn't," Shueli snapped. "As if she wouldn't. Director Qin, you think too nicely of people. That woman used the excuse of nursing Ninth Master's health to cling by his side. She's even meddling with the company's affairs now. Even Su Yi's been taken in by her. She obviously has some ulterior motive here. She better not harm Ninth Master or bring the company down too." Qin Ruoshi pinched the space between her brows. "But right now, she's the most trusted person at Audio's side. Even I can't get involved. Furthermore, I'm in an awkward position." Shueli expressed some understanding in the matter. Qin Ruoshi had always been rumored to be the most suitable candidate as the future mistress of the household, and if she stepped forward to oppose Yi Wanwan right now, She would be misunderstood as vying for the position of future mistress. What most trusted person? CEO C's most trusted person shouldn't be this lover of his. I think CEO C's confused due to his illness. Director Chin, since you can't get involved, I'll do it. I'm going to the head office right now to see all the board members. I won't let this issue rest just like this. Shueli straightened his lapel after speaking and strode off. Watching Shueli storm away, the drama of the situation slowly faded away. Miss Ruoshi. Suddenly, a teenager's voice came from behind her. Seeing the person coming towards her, Qin Ruoshi forced a slow smile on her face. Luing, you're back. Luing clenched his fists. Is it true? What? Master, his health. Qin Ruoshi's expression turned gloomy. Yes, during the family clan meeting yesterday, Audiobook and the old madam announced it personally. How could it be? Luing was in disbelief. He knew Master's health hadn't been great all along, but he didn't know it was that serious. Chapter 499. How did you feed me previously? Qin Ruoshi sighed. Miss, Yi only did it for Audio's health. Seeing how tired and helpless Qin Ruoshi was, the fury in Lu Ying's chest rose instantly. For Master's health. Miss Ruoshi, I already heard about it and also heard the entire conversation just now. Master has to go for the operation as soon as possible within 3 months. Otherwise, his life might be in danger. But that woman insisted on stopping him, so she's obviously trying to harm him. Qin Ruoshi tried to calm him down. Maybe Miss Yi could really nurse Audio's health back. That would be great. Luing was so mad that he started laughing and he spoke with a darkened expression. TSK, nurse his health back? Miss Ruoshi, do you even know why Master's health is in this state today? It's all thanks to that woman's provocations. She really wants Master dead, so how could she help Master recover? Even if she has no ulterior motives, what abilities does she have that she could do something even renowned doctors can't? Now she's even interfering with the company's internal affairs. What right does she have? In the living room, after Qin Ruoshi and Shueli left, Yi Wanwan took the documents upstairs. She pushed the bedroom door open and sure enough, Si Han was lying in bed obediently. Yi Wanwan's expression became gentler, and she pulled a chair to his bedside. As she was about to sit down, Si Han, whose gaze remained fixed on her, said slowly, "Sit by my side." When Yi Wanwan heard that, her heart trembled slightly, and she turned to look at him. Am I not sitting right next to you? I even dragged the chair over. But from Si Han's tone, he was obviously referring to the bed. I can't fall asleep, Si Han said. Yi Wanwan couldn't refute that, so she lifted the blanket and sat next to Si Han. Are you happy now? Yi Wanwan asked. Si Han. It's better if you lie down. Yi Wanwan was speechless. No, I have to finish reading these documents, then clean them up a little. You should sleep a little longer. I should be done with them by the time you wake up. Then I'll summarize them and read them out for you later. Yi Wanwan said assertively, leaving no room for objection. Seeing her serious little face, Si Han was somewhat helpless. Wait, take your medicine first. Although the fever's gone, you haven't fully recovered from your cold yet. Don't let it become worse again. Yi Wanwan got up immediately and poured a couple pills out as if she had done it many times before. Yi Wanwan took the pills, poured a cup of water, and walked back to the bed. However, Si Han kept looking at her, not moving an inch. What's the matter now? Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows. Si Han's eyes shifted and he asked all of a sudden, how did you feed me when I was unconscious before? Yi Wanwan was stunned at first, then her cheeks started to burn slightly. She pushed the cup of water over. I shoved it in all right. Why am I finding that this guy is becoming harder to deal with? Where's the aloof man I used to know? I used my mouth to feed him before due to the situation at that time, okay? Yi Wanwan leaned against the headboard after she finally fed Si Han his pills and coaxed him to sleep. She stared at the classified documents in her hands. Si Han didn't hide any confidential information from her anyway, but if she opened these herself, there would be a totally different meaning to it now. Yi Wanwan sat there for a long while. In the end, she looked at the documents slowly. Chapter 500. I know very well what I'm doing before. I always thought Yi didn't put his guard up around me, because he viewed me as an unimportant plaything. But who would allow a plaything to meddle with such important matters? Thinking about it carefully, Yi deliberately allowed me to meddle in the company's affairs in the past life several times. Probably to increase my influence and carve a path for my future. But I thought he was making life difficult for me. So I messed things up and caused more resentment instead. Downstairs, Sui was briefing the servants on some issues when Lu Ying stomped in. Sui saw him and greeted him. Lu Ying, you're back? Lu Ying's face was rigid as he replied. Sui, come here for a while. Noticing that Lu Ying didn't look too good, Sui anticipated a storm brewing as he dismissed the servants and followed Lu Ying into the courtyard. The two of them walked in single file to a corner in the courtyard where there was no one around. Sui had just stopped in his tracks when Lu Ying turned around swiftly and threw a punch at Suyi's face. The punch landed so quickly and Sui was completely caught off guard. His face was smashed by the fist and his head started to buzz. Lu Ying looked as if his entire being was set ablaze by fury. Su, not only did you forget who you are, but you even forgot who your master is, huh? Sui took a very long time before he returned to his senses from the dizziness. He stood up and looked firmly into the eyes of the teenager. What are you trying to say? Lu Ying sneered. What am I saying? I'm referring to the way you kneel and suck up to that woman. Sui responded without any expression. Lu Ying, be careful of your words. Don't forget that Miss Wanwan saved Master's life before. She saved all of us, including yourself. Lu Ying scoffed. So that's your reason? If it wasn't for that incident, do you think I would tolerate everything up till now? I didn't want things to be this way, but she actually stopped Master from going for that operation. Do you know Master will be killed by her? Furthermore, she just received a tip from that mole before. How can you give her all the credit? Who is she to interfere with the company's affairs? Who is she to order us around and even humiliate Miss Ruashi? Sui remained silent after listening to Lu Ying. Those things Yi Wanwan did weren't informed by the mole at all. The mole was long dead. If it wasn't for Yi Wanwan, all of them would have died. Although Sui didn't know why Yi Wanwan would know those things, he believed she didn't have any malicious intentions towards the master. But he couldn't tell Lu Ying all this. Lu Ying's bias against Yi Wanwan was too strong. If he found out Yi Wanwan had no explanation for knowing so much, it would probably bring up more problems. Seeing that Sui was keeping silent, Lu Ying's gaze turned icier. What? Don't have anything to say? You've been completely bribed and blinded by that woman. Sui stared at Lu Ying resolutely and mouthed each word clearly. Lu Ying, the 3 months time frame is not up yet, and before there is an outcome, we can't simply arrive at a conclusion. Also, Miss Wanwan is not what you see on the surface. She's not just a dumb and weak princess. On the contrary, she's brave, smart, and calm. Even if some insider information was tipped off by the mole, ask yourself honestly, as a woman, she was able to successfully deceive the brutal and vicious murderous blood gang while remaining calm and composed in that sort of situation. Do you really think that was pure luck? Lu Ying, you're always judging her based on your emotions, and you've lost your objectivity. I don't want to debate with you right now. Sui said his piece, then wiped the blood on his mouth with the back of his hand. Also, I know very well what I'm doing. Chapter 501. Is it that hard to say something sweet? Yi Wanwan finally finished reading all the documents. With so much complicated data and information, she would have collapsed if not for her powerful memory. At this moment, she heard a deep hoarse voice. Was it fun to read? Yi Wanwan immediately turned and looked at the man who had just woken up. What do you think? I really have no idea how you read these documents to the point where you neglected sleep and forgot about eating. I've only read them for a day and I feel like puking already. Hurry, come over. Let me take a look at your face to refresh my eyes. Si Yihan chuckled. His smile was like flower petals drifting out of those deep eyes. Seeing his smile, Yi Wanwan was dumbstruck. Damn. That should be illegal. This is my very first time seeing the great devil smiling so gently. The effect of this eyewash is amazing. Yi Wanwan heaved a quiet sigh of relief when she saw his rare smile. Do you feel more energized now? Si Yihan. And Yi Wanwan leaned over, planted a kiss on his face and smiled sweetly. Don't you feel much better now? Batteries recharged. Get up and have a bite first. I'll give you a report when you're done. After Si Yihan washed up, Yi Wanwan asked the kitchen to bring some breakfast over, and when they were done with breakfast, she started helping him deal with some work. In the study, Si Yihan leaned against the sofa silently and Yi Wanwan sat opposite. The fresh scent of grass, after a rain, wafted in through the window and entwined with the girl's soothing voice. Everything she was reading was extremely troublesome and obscure business affairs mired in minor details that caused one to be frustrated. Yet he didn't feel stifled at all. Instead, he wished that she would continue reading like that. In the blink of an eye, a day went by. Si Yihan rested and worked at the same time, and managed to deal with all the documents. At night, Yi Wanwan sat in front of the dresser after a shower. Looking at herself in the mirror, Yi Wanwan was a little doubtful. With her abilities, there wasn't much she could accomplish now. At most, she could give a summary report and help him send some emails, but he still had to make the final decision. Through the mirror, Yi Wanwan shot a glance at Si Yihan who was sitting on the sofa behind her and couldn't help but ask. That's Si Yihan. I suddenly realized that. You're still the one who has to use your brain power. Is it any help that I merely tidy up the documents and read them to you? Even though Si Yihan's face was still slightly pale, he was in pretty good spirits. After he heard her question, he placed the bowl of medicine down, glanced at the girl then replied plainly, logically speaking, it's not of much use. When Yi Wanwan heard that, her head drooped instantly. Oh, then didn't I just do something worthless? Si Yihan then replied casually, I didn't say this has to be logical. Yi Wanwan turned around confused. Ah? What do you mean? Si Yihan. The literal meaning. Yi Wanwan. So what are you trying to say exactly? I still don't get it. Si Yihan. Find out yourself. Yi Wanwan. What the hell? Find out myself. Yi Wanwan racked her brain, and it circled more than 10 rounds. After a very long time, she finally got it. She looked at the cold and dashing man with a darkened expression. Why can't you just say that because the person reading the documents and accompanying you to deal with work is your darling cutie, so you feel extremely blessed, entirely free from worries and very productive? Huh? Why must you beat around the bush? Is it that hard to say something sweet? Yi Wanwan complained, rather displeased. Chapter 502. You teach me. Si Yihan looked at the girl's upset little expression and said, You teach me. Yi Wanwan felt speechless and replied, I think. You're probably unteachable. You have no potential. Yi Wanwan obviously didn't dare to speak the truth and said with utter seriousness, I think you don't have to learn. All you have to do is rely on your looks. When Si Yihan heard that, he raised his brows. Clearly, this wasn't what she intended to say. Yi Wanwan hopped over, sat next to Si Yihan and looked at him with her hands supporting her head. Why don't you teach me instead? Teach me how to deal with all these matters so when I'm good at it, I can help share your burden. Hearing this, Si Yihan's expression became serious. You want to learn? Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows slightly. Actually, I'm not too sure either. Probably sensing Yi Wanwan's hesitation, Si Yihan looked deep into her eyes. Let me know when you've made up your mind. Yi Wanwan replied. No need, I've already decided. She knew what this decision entailed, but from the moment she chose to intervene during the trip to Country B, many things were no longer up to her anymore. Yi Wanwan was in a daze when her phone started ringing. It was Jiang Yanran. When Yi Wanwan saw that it was from Jiang Yanran, she suddenly recalled that the summer holiday was almost over and time had gone by in a flash. As she had been really busy during the summer break, she didn't have much time to keep in touch with Jiang Yanran and the others. Jiang Yanran was a very good seedling, although she promised Yi Wanwan she would ask her to be her manager if she entered the entertainment industry. After they got along so well, Jiang Yanran now felt like more than just a future partner to her. She was a friend. No matter what her choice was in the future, Yi Wanwan wouldn't force her. It's Jiang Yanran calling. Yi Wanwan informed Si Yihan then answered the call. Hello Yanran? Wanwan. I was about to call you myself to ask if you wanted to go to school together in a few days' time, Yuanwan said. Sure. We'll go together then. Yuanwan was about to continue speaking, but she was very sharp and noticed something off with Jiang Yanran's voice. What's the matter? Why do you sound so down? Jiang Yanran hesitated to speak. Yuanwan knitted her brows when she heard some vague noises and music in Jiang Yanran's background. Why is it so noisy on your end? Where are you? Jiang Yanran ignored her question. She remained silent for a while before slowly speaking. Wanwan, I might be breaking up. Yuanwan was stunned. What did you say? Why so suddenly? Seeing that Yuanwan had a sudden change in expression, Si Yihan cast a sideways glance at her. Why were you breaking up all of a sudden? What happened with Chu Feng? Yuanwan asked anxiously. There was silence at the other end for some time before Jiang Yanran's voice was heard. Lately, when he was going out with me, he was seeing another girl at the same time. What did you say? How is that possible? Yuanwan was in shock, like she just heard the most unbelievable thing. Even if you gave Chu Feng 100 guts, he would never dare to do such a thing. Yanran, could it be that you were mistaken? Yuanwan hurriedly asked. Jiang Yanran laughed bitterly. Mistaken? I noticed something was off with him, but I didn't think much about it until one day when I saw him shopping with that girl with my own eyes. I stood outside the shop and called him, but he lied and told me he was at home. Chapter 503. Walk into it one more time for me to see if there was nothing fishy going on. Why would he lie? But she still thought there must be some misunderstanding to this issue. In my past life, Chu Feng was so devoted to Jiang Yanran. How could he do something like this? The music from the other end became more deafening, and Yuanwan frowned. Where are you right now? Scarlet Bar. Jiang Yanran sounded a little intoxicated. When she heard Jiang Yanran was at a bar, and realized that she sounded drunk, Yuanwan knitted her brows. It's too dangerous for Jiang Yanran to be alone at a bar in this condition. Got it, I'll be there right away. Yuanwan hung up after speaking. Before she said anything, Si Yihan's voice traveled into her ears. Let Sui take you. Yuanwan nodded and kissed Si Yihan on the cheek. I'll go check what's going on. I'll be back very soon. She wasn't sure when she and Si Yihan started to chat so naturally, but she was also no longer afraid that he would be mad when she saw her friends or talked to them. And these changes happened in just a few short months. Yuanwan rushed downstairs. When she was downstairs, she saw Sui speaking to a servant in the living room. Yuanwan was about to call out to him, but Sui started hiding the second he saw her, and rushed towards the kitchen instantly. Yuanwan frowned with a suspicious gaze, then called out to him to stop him. Housekeeper Su. Su Yi's back stiffened. He didn't have a choice but to turn around slowly and lower his head, hoping to hide the injuries on his face. Miss Wanwan, how can I help you? What happened to your face? Yuanwan asked sternly. Nothing. I walked into the door, Sui replied. Yuanwan crossed her arms and laughed. You walked into the door, and your face turned like that? Why don't you walk into it one more time for me to see? At this moment, half of Su Yi's face was swollen. He had a bruise around his eye and it was bloodshot. He could barely even open it. Cough this, Sui had nothing to say. Was it Luing? Yuanwan asked. Sui quickly said. It's really nothing, Miss Wanwan, by the way. What can I do for you? Sui attempted to change the topic. Yuanwan's face turned gloomy. Forget it, get Luing and make him drive me to a place. Sui replied instantly. Where would you like to go? I'll drive you. How are you going to drive when you're injured like that? Go get him. There was a hint of fury in Yuanwan's voice. Seeing that Yuanwan was angry, Sui didn't have a choice but to get someone to call Luing over right away. Standing before him was just a petite young lady, yet when she got really angry, she could make him feel the chills. There was an aura around her that was very similar to Si Yihan's. Very soon, Luing was called over and he was annoyed the second he saw Yuanwan. What's the matter? Yuanwan cast a sideways glance at him coldly. Get the car ready and drive me to Scarlet Bar. What? Hearing Yi Wanwan ordering him around with such a tone, Lu Ying's face turned rigid. Before anger could appear on Lu Ying's face, Yi Wanwan already stood up, not allowing any room for objections. She glanced at the time on her phone. I'm in a rush. You. Lu Ying balled his hands, looked at Su Yi and finally gritted his teeth and followed Yi Wanwan. Chapter 504. Meeting a guy or a girl. Song Jing took a glimpse at the back through the rearview mirror, then said softly, "Hi, Captain, don't be angry anymore. Boss likes her. What can we do?" Shut up. Lu Ying was obviously in a bad mood. He actually had to escort this woman, a total insult to him. Oh, Song Jing stopped talking. The car drove for some time and Song Jing spoke up again as he hated the silence. "Captain, though I find Goddess Ruashi the most qualified to be the mistress of the household, Yi Wanwan isn't as bad as you think, right? Forgetting about appearances, isn't it normal for girls to be a little whiny? This isn't a big deal. Also, for the trip to Country B, even though the mole gave her the information, she managed to act it out so realistically. It's a skill as well. Even our own people were fooled by her." Thankfully, Yi Wanwan was there to save him that time. Song Jing still felt quite grateful towards her. If she hadn't appeared and revealed Eugene's weaknesses, he would be dead by now. Lu Ying sneered and spoke loudly, allowing Yi Wanwan to hear him on purpose. "TSK, great acting skills. Why doesn't she be an actress then?" In the back seat, Yi Wanwan thought about Jiang Yanran and Chu Feng, and ignored Lu Ying's mockery. Half an hour later, the car finally stopped at the entrance of Scarlet Bar. Yi Wanwan immediately got out of the car and walked briskly into the bar. Why's Miss Yi going to a bar at this hour? Is she meeting a guy or a girl? Song Jing mumbled as he parked the car. Lu Ying crossed his arms and acted like he didn't care. At the bar, the lights were dazzling and the music was deafening. Yi Wanwan squeezed through the crowd and finally found Jiang Yanran lying in one of the booths. Yanran! Yi Wanwan heaved a sigh of relief when she finally found her. Jiang Yanran raised her head slowly when she heard the familiar voice and looked at her in a daze. The moment she realized who that person was, her eyes turned red and she smiled. "Wanwan, you're here." Seeing the girl forcing a smile, Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows and walked up to her. Yi Wanwan didn't say a word. She hugged her gently and patted her back. The tears Jiang Yanran had been holding back came streaming down as her body jerked lightly. Currently, Song Jing and Lu Ying were sitting in a nearby booth as well. "So it's a woman, no wonder," Song Jing mumbled. When Jiang Yanran calmed down a little, Yi Wanwan asked, "What happened?" Jiang Yanran held her forehead. "It's just as I said." "Yi Wanwan, are you sure that the woman isn't Chu Feng's relative? Maybe a cousin or something?" Jiang Yanran shook her head. "I checked, she isn't." "Do you have a picture of that woman?" Yi Wanwan tried to probe further. Jiang Yanran picked her phone up. "I secretly took one when I saw them that day." She pulled up a picture from her photo album. Yi Wanwan quickly took Jiang Yanran's phone and saw that there was a shopping center in the background. A young girl was shopping while Chu Feng was following behind with many shopping bags in his hands. Chapter 505. Amputate his third leg. However, what caught Yi Wanwan's attention was that she found this woman somewhat familiar. Yi Wanwan enlarged the photo to take a closer look, and increasingly felt like she had seen this woman somewhere, and it seemed quite recent. Weird, who could it be? Yi Wanwan was deep in thought. From the photo, this woman looks like she's in her 20s, definitely older than Chu Feng. She doesn't look like the type Chu Feng likes, right? Who knows? Jiang Yanran's face was pale as she mumbled and downed her glass. Song Ziheng already left a deep wound on Jiang Yanran. If Chu Feng truly went behind her back. Also, I was the one who brought Chu Feng and Jiang Yanran together. Darn it. This Chu Feng. I helped him so much, and if he really dared to cheat, I'll amputate his third leg. One. Jiang Yanran filled their glasses to the brim. Have a drink with me? Yi Wanwan frowned. Yanran, stop drinking. We can't jump to a conclusion without figuring out exactly what's going on. We'll find a chance to ask him out and talk about it. Jiang Yanran closed her eyes. But, Wanwan, I don't want to. I don't want to talk about it. Yuanwan sighed softly. She knew it wasn't that Jiang Yanran didn't want to talk about it. It was more that she didn't dare. Oh oh oh, an ear-piercing howl resounded in the bar. In the middle of the stage, there was a stripper and her performance was very provocative. Not fit to be seen. Not far off, Songjing couldn't get his eyes off her. I didn't expect that I would have such benefits just from making this trip. Lu Ying's face was gloomy. Staring at Yi Wanwan speaking to Jiang Yanran, his face turned even nastier. A girl coming to a place like this at this hour? She's just dirty and corrupted. At the messy bar, Yi Wanwan was wearing a white blouse paired with jeans. She looked very out of place. She was dressed so ordinarily and didn't even have any makeup on. But her clear eyes and attractive looks with skin as white as snow was like a huge source of light, attracting tons of attention the moment she stepped into the bar. At this moment, in the VIP glass booth upstairs. Damn! Young Master Chen, a premium good, just walked in. Someone stared in a specific direction without blinking. The wealthy prince holding a drink next to him stepped over. You're so damn noisy. What premium good? There, over there. The prince looked in the direction of Jiang Yanran and wasn't impressed. Isn't she just a lonely, dejected and drunk girl? Haven't you seen a woman before? That girl didn't look too shabby, but he already tried countless beauties in Imperial City, so he was sick of girls looking like this. The lackey next to him exclaimed, No, not her. It's the one beside the one in red, that chick in the white blouse. Next to her. The prince moved his gaze a few inches and saw the woman sitting across the girl in red. After he saw the girl clearly, the prince's hand holding the drink paused in midair, and his eyes couldn't move away. Damn. A premium good indeed. Didn't expect that I could see such a rare beauty in scarlet. Downstairs, Yuanwan was trying to help Jiang Yanran up. Yanran, be good and stop drinking. It's getting late, so let's head back home first. I'll go with you to meet Chu Feng another day, alright. Jiang Yanran was completely drunk now, so Yuanwan had to use all her strength and finally managed to help her up. Chapter 506. Not fully qualified, she was very certain she had seen that girl somewhere before, but she just couldn't recall at this moment. I'll think about it when I get back. Yi Wanwan supported Jiang Yanran while in deep thought, and when she passed the bar counter, she was suddenly blocked by a few people. Yi Wanwan didn't pay them any mind and turned in another direction. However, the moment she turned, the other side was blocked as well. This repeated a couple of times, and Yi Wanwan naturally realized that something was wrong. Are they doing this on purpose? Yi Wanwan lifted her head and looked at the people blocking her way. Standing in front was a smartly dressed guy in custom-made Armani from head to toe. He looked shameless. His tipsy eyes were murky and listless, and he was looking at her with the gaze of a hunter. Behind him were a few stocky men in black. Judging from their build and disposition, they didn't look like ordinary bodyguards but bodyguards of wealthy families who had undergone stringent training. TK beautiful, truly beautiful. The prince was enchanted. His stare was like a revolting serpent, sticking its tongue out and licking a person's skin, making Yi Wanwan feel disgusted. The man next to the prince looked vile. His mouth stuck out and he had an ape's chin. He was dressed in a black muscle tank and had blonde hair. He rubbed his hands gleefully when he told the prince, Told you. Young master, how could I possibly lie to you, huh? After the blonde spoke, he looked at Yi Wanwan like a hungry wolf. Beauty, our young master Chen wants to buy you a drink. This way, please. Yi Wanwan scanned these people expressionlessly. Sorry, I'm not interested. Seeing that she actually dared to reject them, the blonde was taken aback. Do you know who my young master is? This was his young master's turf. People who came here never rejected young Master Chen unless they were blind and didn't know who he was. Yi Wanwan's face was still expressionless. Am I supposed to know? Yi Wanwan's indifferent tone immediately angered the blondie. My young master is the son of the owner of Xiande International, the boss of this Scarlet Bar. So don't embarrass yourself here. Not far off, Songjing noticed something was wrong and he hurriedly said, Captain, someone's making trouble for Miss Yi. Attracting bees and butterflies. Lu Ying sneered. Cough, Captain, we better head over quickly. Otherwise, things might get out of hand. Song Jing was anxious. Lu Ying's eyes shifted slightly, and he gave Song Jing side-eye. Why were you panicking? That woman's so capable as the future mistress of the Sea household. Do you have to be so anxious about such a small issue? Song Jing rubbed his nose, slightly uneasy. He felt like he was in a difficult position. But she's still a girl. And the one making trouble is that good-for-nothing from the Chen family, Chen Shijia. He always uses his father's power to tyrannize others. He's a well-known terror who's played so many women. Getting involved with a person like him, I'm afraid Yi Wanwan will be at a loss. Lu Ying's eyes were frosty. So you know that too? Let me tell you, without Master or the Sea family, this woman is nothing. She can be a lover, but she's not qualified to be the mistress of the household. Seeing Lu Ying's dark expression, Song Jing kept quiet and didn't dare to talk back. From a certain perspective, the captain was right. A woman like Yi Wanwan was really not fully qualified to be the mistress of the household. Chapter 507. Grab her. Although that was what he thought, Yi Wanwan was still a defenseless, weak girl, which was why she brought them along. They couldn't possibly expect her to put on a pair of wings and fly out in a situation like this, right? Just as Lu Ying and Song Jing observed from the sidelines, Yi Wanwan was surrounded by a group of people. Others at the bar were used to this situation already, and none of them dared to intervene. Instead, they all hid far away. This was Chen Shijia's territory. Obviously, nobody dared to do anything. The blonde spat out arrogantly, "Babe, don't make things difficult for yourself. Follow us obediently and have some fun with our young master Chen for a couple days. Otherwise, Agui, don't be so rough with a beauty." Chen Shijia stared at Yi Wanwan without blinking at all, totally entranced by her. When his eyes swept past Jiang Yanran, who was next to Yi Wanwan, he brightened up instantly. He didn't think much of her before as they were too far away, but now that he was closer, this girl in red was quite attractive too. If I can get them both, hee. Today's my lucky day. Chen Shijia held a glass of whiskey in his hand as he leaned closer clumsily. This beauty isn't bad either. Why don't both of you accompany me, huh? I love threesomes. All the lackeys around them burst out in laughter when they heard that. Ha 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 ha. Young Master Chen's going to have so much fun tonight. Why aren't you thanking young Master Chen? Tonight, both of you sisters have a chance to get on young Master Chen's bed. Hearing those people's filthy and crude remarks, Yi Wanwan's eyes turned ice cold, and she took a step back, protecting Jiang Yanran. She glanced behind her as she didn't want to get in trouble with these people. Lu Ying and Song Jing were nearby. In the end, when she turned her head to look for them, she met Lu Ying's mocking gaze, and Song Jing avoided her gaze on purpose after already having seen her. He looked down, not daring to say a word. The two of them clearly knew her situation. Yet they remained in place without any intention of helping. She didn't have to guess to know that Lu Ying was doing this deliberately. When Yi Wanwan saw this, a tinge of coldness appeared on her lips. "TSK, I really underestimated Qin Ruoxi's ability to capture people's hearts. Didn't you hear what young Master Chen said? Bring these two this way. Young Master Chen would like to enjoy himself tonight. Make it quick." Yes. After they heard the blondie's orders, two big men immediately stepped forward at the same time and grabbed Yi Wanwan and Jiang Yanran with their big, strong hands. After that, Chen Shijia slowly strolled to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan glared at Chen Shijia as he got closer to her. She kicked him in the stomach and elbowed him to release Jiang Yanran from his grip. Chen Shijia didn't see this coming at all. He hadn't expected Yi Wanwan actually knew a move or two. He rubbed his stomach and his tipsy eyes were overcast. Wow, that's hot. Not bad. I like that. Seeing as Yi Wanwan wasn't easy to deal with, she even hit Chen Shijia. Two others appeared in an instant. Yi Wanwan had to protect Jiang Yanran and deal with four men at the same time, and she started to feel a little overwhelmed. Although she had quick reaction times for various types of martial arts, she hated learning how to fight and kill. When her father hired a professional to coach her, she slacked off whenever she could. Dealing with ordinary people was fine, but these were obviously highly trained bodyguards equipped with proper skills. Each one of them could take down 10 men at once, not to mention a woman like her. Chapter 508. Force alcohol down her throat. Chen Shijie and his group of lackeys just stood there watching and giggling as she resisted. After some time, Chen Shijie lost his patience and his eyes gradually turned malicious. Hee, she has quite a temper, huh? Don't want to leave with young master, right? Fine. I will just deal with you here. Chen Shijie was fearless when he started playing. He had done things like this in public several times before, and even held a party performing sickening acts on women in front of everyone. He would really do it and found great pleasure in it. His lackeys started howling like wolves once again after he said that. Most of the people in the pub were also watching the commotion and started howling along as if the issue wasn't serious enough. In the crowd, there were countless pairs of lecherous eyes and drunk and lustful faces filled with desire, eagerly awaiting this visual feast. Occasionally, there were some who couldn't stand it, but they didn't dare to say anything. Each person hid far away. Chen Shijie's group of thugs were all highly paid experts. Who would dare to stir up trouble with them? Chen Shijie held his glass elegantly and got the lackey next to him to top up his glass as he sneered, "Grab hold of her." Suddenly, the remaining guards around her pounced over like wolves and tigers. Jiang Yanran, who was drunk and unconscious, was thrown aside by two huge bodyguards while the rest grabbed hold of Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan couldn't move an inch. She glared at them, her eyes increasingly glacial. The dreadful iciness in her eyes inexplicably made Chen Shijie shiver, but he was quickly overcome by his lustful desires as he leaned over to her with an evil smile and ordered his lackey, "Force alcohol down her throat." I've seen many women like her who look innocent on the surface. Her true nature will be revealed after a few drinks. Lustier than anybody. Yes. The blondie immediately ran over, took a bottle of whiskey and started to force the alcohol down her throat. Cough cough. Yi Wanwan felt as if her throat was on fire as the hard liquor was forced into her mouth. Ha 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 ha, drink more. Chen Shijie kept making Yi Wanwan drink nonstop and very soon, the bottom of the bottle could be seen. Chen Shijie admired her for a long while. Finally, with a crash, Chen Shijie flung aside the glass in his hand, and he walked towards the girl slowly, ready to have a taste of this feast. Song Jing couldn't take it anymore after seeing this scene. "Captain, are we really not going to do anything?" As expected, Luing remained still without any intention of doing anything. Obviously, he wouldn't really let anything happen. But this woman had to be taught a lesson today. When Song Jing saw her up against so many people, yet Luing still didn't give the order to do anything, he panicked even more. This can't go on. No matter what, Yi Wanwan is still Master's woman and we received orders to protect her. How can we ignore our duty? If things get really out of hand, I would have to go ahead and intervene by myself. After an entire bottle of hard liquor, Yi Wanwan felt like her entire being was in a furnace and her whole body started burning. Even her soul felt as if it was on fire, gradually turning into ashes. The deafening music around her, crazy waves of laughter of the crowd, and Chen Shijie's lustful face got closer. The world was spinning around her. Yi Wanwan's head felt like it was about to explode. Her body went limp as she laid on the floor and curled up due to the agonizing pain. Chapter 509. Awakening of Power. Hee, what a fine creature. Her clothes were stained with the pale golden alcohol, infused with the luster of white jade, causing all the men to be dazzled. The way she curled up in pain increased Chen Shijie's masochistic desires. Beautiful, too beautiful. Chen Shijie reached out, extremely excited. However, he obviously had to leave the best for last. He would start with an appetizer. Chen Shijie turned and walked in the direction of Jiang Yanran. Oh, at the same time, the atmosphere in the entire bar reached its climax and everyone was howling wildly. Almost all the men were salivating and their eyes were focused in the direction of the two girls. One was fresh and delicate while the other was extremely stunning. Chen Shijie truly hit the jackpot tonight. Just as Chen Shijie touched Jiang Yanran's body, a slender hand suddenly reached out and grabbed Chen Shijie's wrist. "Oh, little chick's awake?" Seeing as Yi Wanwan was still resisting, Chen Shijie became even more excited and his face contorted into a sickly grimace. Don't worry. It'll be your turn soon. Chen Shijie spoke while trying to pull his hand back. However, he suddenly realized he couldn't even move his wrist. He tried continuously using his strength to break away, but to no avail. What's happening? How is this woman so strong? It was as if he was being restrained tightly by an iron claw. After many attempts to free himself, Chen Shijie's expression changed slightly. This woman is really evil. Damn it. What are all of you standing there for? Don't you know how to come over and help me? Chen Shijie bellowed at his lackeys, exasperated. His lackeys looked at each other with confusion. Help him with what? The girl held onto Chen Shijie's hand tightly, and he couldn't get her off no matter how he pulled. So they all thought they were teasing each other and having some fun. Darn it! Chen Shijie felt the pain on his wrist increasing, and he panicked so much that he sweated profusely when the girl lying on the floor slowly opened her eyes without any warning. It seemed as if there was an eternal darkness and boundless ice field in her eyes without a hint of human emotion. It sent chills down his spine. Faced with her eyes, Chen Shijie's heart skipped a beat all of a sudden, like he was enveloped by an overwhelming iciness that covered the skies and ground. His surroundings were all piercingly cold, and his instincts caused him to widen his eyes. In the next second, before Chen Shijie could return to his senses, there was a loud crack. The blood-curdling sound of a bone being fractured resounded. A hand! My hand! The moment Chen Shijie cried out in anguish, his entire body flew out like a broken kite and slammed against a liquor cabinet with a thunderous crash. The bottles of alcohol behind him fell to the floor, shattering into pieces. Following that, Chen Shijie, who was buried by the shards of glass, vomited a mouthful of blood and fainted right away. He laid on the floor unmoving, and nobody knew whether he was dead or alive. This scene happened within a few short seconds. In the boisterous bar, it was as if someone switched the off button. The crowd was in total silence. Everybody stared at the woman lying on the floor, and instinctively took a step back like they were looking at a freak. What's going on? What just happened? Under the horrific gazes of everyone in the room, Yi Wanwan moved her slender and fair wrist lazily, while still looking elegant and content. Then she stood up slowly. Chapter 510. Get her. All of you. From his angle, he could clearly see Chen Shijie's wrist being twisted at a weird angle by Yi Wanwan. It was definitely broken. She broke it just like that. Not only Song Jing, but Lu Ying's indifferent expression stiffened as well. What just happened? After a moment of dead silence, Chen Shijie's lackeys returned to their senses. What the hell? How did that woman do that just now? How did a big man like young Master Chen get beaten up and flung out? The blondie didn't have time to think. He ran over anxiously to take a look at Chen Shijie's condition. Young Master Chen. Young Master Chen, wake up. Chen Shijie slowly woke up, but he was completely stunned, and the pain from his chest and wrist made him begin wailing once again. Hand, my hand. The blondie glared evilly in Yi Wanwan's direction and immediately burst into a fit on the spot. Slut. You actually dared to hit young Master Chen. You're dead meat. Get her. All of you. Chen Shijie yelled as well. Capture her. I want her life. Seeing his own young master being beaten up by a woman, Chen Shijie's bodyguards charged forward like devils and monsters towards the petite woman. The girl stood in the same spot indifferently, and didn't move an inch when she saw the people charging towards her. Her drunken eyes were loaded with boredom. It wasn't until those bodyguards almost reached her that she then turned on her toes subtly. 3 steps. 2 steps. 1 step. A bang reverberated through the air. She used her toe as a pivot, maneuvered 180 degrees and did a spinning kick. The bodyguard closest to her didn't even have time to make a move and flew backward from the kick. Blood spewed out of the man's mouth and he was unconscious in an instant. Fuck. What's with this woman? She didn't even have any energy to resist before. How did she? The blondie was taken aback. He took a step back instinctively, then stammered. What are you afraid of? Get her. Get her. All of you attack her at the same time. Nobody dared to let their guards down and they attacked like madmen. Yi Wanwan gripped one of them and threw him directly at another attacker like she was throwing a sandbag. Then she turned around, as light as a feather, and kicked another man on the right. Chen Shijie had at least 10 bodyguards with him, and each of them was highly trained. But in the end, they didn't even have the power to fight back and were sent flying one after another. The eyes of one of the bald and burly man lit up. He moved swiftly and pounced onto Yi Wanwan from behind. Seeing that she was completely unaware, the baldy was elated. Gotcha. Alas, the second the baldy attacked, there was a swish. It was as if she had eyes at the back of her head since her fair and soft fingers moved horizontally in a position of a karate chop. She struck his neck abruptly, his most vulnerable spot. Oh! His throat felt as if it was being strangled by a sharp claw. The air in his chest rapidly escaped and the baldy's face swelled up into the color of a pig's liver. Being on the verge of dying left his eyes filled with fear. Eventually, everyone looked at the girl like they were looking at a ghost. The girl still looked unconcerned and pleased. It was still the same face in person, yet it was as if she completely transformed into another being, spreading a terrifying and barbaric aura all around her. Chapter 511. Is it thrilling enough? Everyone's first reaction was to run. However, this woman's movements were too swift and all of them ended up whining in pain on the ground before they could even move. Spare me, don't kill me, don't kill me. The girl raised her brows and her eyes swept across all the people on the floor like she was looking at ants. It seemed as if she was very disappointed. Her beautiful voice flowed out of her cherry blossom lips. Tisk, boring. Not a single one of them can fight. Within a few short minutes, it was as if she just swatted a couple flies and more than 10 of those bulky bodyguards were hugging their knees, rolling in pain on the floor. The customers were also screaming in panic and the entire place was in chaos. Through the chaos, Yi Wanwan slowly made her way towards Chen Shijie. Stop her! Stop her! Chen Shijie yelled, petrified. However, the bodyguards watched as she walked over, and they all crawled backward. None of them dared to step forward. The blondie stood a few steps away, trembling with cold sweat trickling down his back. Following that, a cold light flashed in his eyes. His fingers reached for his back subtly and he pulled out a gun. Bitch! I'll see how arrogant you can get. Surrender obediently. Ha 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 ha. Yi Wanwan raised her brows slightly when she saw this. Just as the blondie laughed haughtily, he suddenly realized she disappeared. What's going on? Where is she? The blondie was stunned, and at this moment he suddenly felt a chill that gave him goosebumps from behind. That's not the way you play with guns. The girl's ghostly voice traveled to his ears. You. The blondie was so terrified that his soul left his body. He was tempted to pull the trigger instinctively. The moment he moved his finger, he realized his gun was gone and without any warning, there was a loud bang. The back of the blondie's hand exploded into a bloody flower. The blondie's screams nearly broke through the roof. The girl then spun the gun around her finger and looked somewhat unsatisfied. You had the nerve to take out a toy like this? Oh God! Murder! The music stopped playing and after the customers heard the gunshot, they screamed and dispersed. The entire bar was a mess. Yi Wanwan didn't even glance at them. She strolled casually towards the luxurious booth. She took a seat in the soft and comfortable booth with one hand on the armrest, and another holding a newly opened bottle of red wine, and poured a glass for herself. She twisted her gracefully arched neck and drained the glass in one gulp. Currently, Chen Shijie was lying by her feet, and had witnessed for himself how that petite girl wiped out all his lackeys and shot the blondie's hand without even blinking. He was so scared that his entire back was soaked in sweat. Gudu. Chen Shijie swallowed in fear, and tried to crawl to the side slowly. He only managed to crawl less than a step away when he felt a sharp pain in his hand. Chen Shijie started rolling on the floor in agony. A faint smile appeared on the girl's lips as she stepped on the guy's fractured wrist and slowly leaned forward. Her tender and beautiful lips were stained with red wine like a rose dyed with fresh blood. Her husky voice whispered into the man's ear. What do you think? Is this thrilling enough, seductive enough now? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.